Mr. Noreen with Food Ingredient First, reporting live from the European Space Agency's Space Research and Technology Center on its open day in Noordwijk, Netherlands. I'm here with Rosemary Coogan, who is the astronaut at the ESA, to tell us more about space food innovation from an astronaut's perspective. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you for having me. Thank you for being here.
So my first question is, how is space food represented in this open day, and why is it so important to tell people more about space food?
Well, I don't know if you've had an opportunity yet to have a walk around these corridors, but there is absolutely huge amounts to see today. So absolutely all of the technological developments that are very much at the heart of ESTEC are on display today, and you get a chance to talk to the experts about really how that's happening. And of course, space food is one of those, and it's incredibly important because if we think about now, of course, we have stations in low Earth orbit, we have the International Space Station, and the food on board the ISS, we can't send up fresh food every day, every week. It can really be months between these refills of this cargo. So the food that the astronauts eat on station needs to preserve well, it needs to last for several months, and of course it still needs to be very nutritious. And if we look further afield now, of course we're going back to the moon, we're thinking about going further into our solar system, and this just increases the distances, the time scales. We need to have food that is healthy, but really can sustain for very long periods of time, or perhaps even start to think about making our own food because the distances become very, very large. So thinking about how to keep nutritious is really, really important.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And when you are traveling in space, do you feel there is a difference in the taste and texture when compared to when you have it on Earth?
Well, I'm in training at the moment, so I haven't yet had the opportunity to eat space food in space, but I have eaten it on the ground, and I can tell you on the ground it is very tasty, in my opinion. And having spoken to a lot of experienced astronauts, it's interesting because they do report that actually your taste is different in space. There are things which particularly work for the palate in space. I hear that sometimes in space, food can seem maybe a little bit more bland, and I think people don't fully understand yet why the taste buds change in space, but most people say that actually they do. So that's another interesting part to fold into space research, because of course it needs to be good for us, but it also needs to taste good. There's a huge emotional value, I think, associated with food, and being able to have tasty food as well on the station or further into space is important.
Yeah, and is there any particular food that you crave for when you are up in space, and when you're back to Earth you want to try that?
Well, I think the thing that astronauts really miss in space is that fresh food, fresh fruit, things that are very, also things with crumbs are not particularly good for space, so there's a certain limitations of what you can and can't have. But of course, a lot of research now, for example, is going into growing salad. Salad is a lovely fresh thing, and if we can, we've seen lots of very successful actually examples of growing salad types on the ISS, so I think that's a really interesting avenue to pursue.
Yeah, certainly. And there's also a lot of innovation going on in cell-based food and in plant-based food. So are you also open to try that in space, and what is the general logic behind it, and what do astronauts think about it?
Yeah, I think really we need to kind of tackle this from all different angles. So indeed, kind of producing food from, like you say, kind of growing our own food either on station, on the ground, kind of producing food in different ways. And I think it really translates as well, not only to what we can do in space, but what we can do on the ground. I think generally, we need to think about better ways of producing food in extreme environments. A lot of the research we do on the station about growing food in a difficult environment is very applicable to places on Earth where we have issues with agriculture. So we're completely open to all of these ideas, and I think we absolutely will need all different types of food produced in different ways in order to do that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And considering the food science innovation that goes behind creating space food, do you think some of those techniques can be used to improve the Earth-based foods and maybe improve the sustainability of Earth-based foods?
Yes, exactly. So, I would say that one of the big challenges we have on station is, or one of the big aspects of having food on the station or producing it is water. Because of course we recycle the water on station, well more than 90% of that water. But it is in scarce supply in some senses. You cannot kind of water plants, water things we're growing all day long just like that. And that I think that kind of sustainability factor is in every aspect of what we do on the station, and that absolutely feeds back into how we grow food here, how we recycle here, how we can make things that are nutritious and grow well with very little amounts of water, for example. I think it's a really good example.
And what would you say, because we see a lot of children and young people enthusiastic to know more about space food, what do you think they can learn at events like these?
I think they can learn huge amounts at events like this. I mean, really, I am no expert in this, but the people who are experts, they are here today. And that's what's really exciting, both, for me to learn so much more about it, but also members of the public. And I would really encourage people just to ask questions, because the people who have all of these answers are here. And I think it's great, whenever you speak to people, it's a two-way flow of ideas. Children always have the best questions, the best ideas. And so I think it's a really great place to exchange that.
Yeah, certainly. And finally, what would you say, like if you want to redesign a meal that you're already having in space, is there any particular food in mind that you would like to change, and why?
Oh, that's a good question. To redesign the current space food meal. All I can say is the food I have had so far has been very nice. I don't think I could give you an answer to that, but I think it's a great question, and I will ask some of my colleagues, because, I know that obviously when you go to space, there is a bit of a kind of a special opportunity that you actually get to design some of your own meals. You get this kind of bonus food, and I think that always introduces a nice opportunity to create something new, see if it can be done, perhaps dehydrated or tinned as we need to in space. But as for redesigning a current meal, I've only heard pretty good things.
You're happy with what you have. Okay, thank you so much for your time. Great talking to you.
Thank you very much. It's a really interesting subject, and we should hopefully learn a lot more about it today.
Have a good day.